Well, yeah, I guess there's an old ones, right? No, they're not. No, like there's like 10 of these ones, right? There's one. Yeah, they're pretty old. Okay. No, but there's one you said those. Oh, I thought there were more. I guess there's only one problem. The second one? I'm like, I played the first one, and then I went to the second one, and I was like, I'm done, I don't want to play this. Yeah, and then, I forgot when I bought it, like 3 years ago, whatever. It came back to me. Did you delete it?
Yeah, I'm going to send you one more.
It's good.
If you click, is it working?
I don't know. Like, I mean, it disappears and then it disappears.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll send you this one. This one. All right.
It links from my chat that I was supposed to sync to my chat. It's like trying to count the link. It copies the link to this chat. I'm doing live.
Working? Awesome.
No, I know. So I ended up, no, it's awesome, but I had this from hard drive. Well, I think it's movies that I recorded over the years, like terabytes of music. Not at the time, I didn't even know what I'm getting at is I got rid of my copy. I tried to do what your wife is trying to do. Trying to do that retro thing on Raspberry Pi, so that I can play daughter games on like CDs and whatever. You have to format SD cards for that. You got the computer formatted, put it out, formatted, put it in, formatted again. I recorded it and dragged it 3 times. And then I realized that I freaking faked the wrong letters. I got and I never, after that, I just, whatever.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is JJ. I woke up this morning and this is how I came out. So yeah. Anyway, let me give you a quick introduction. My name is Daniel, and I'm subbing in for JJ while he's enjoying in Bahamas. He kind of left you guys over here and spoiled my weekend also. So my name is Daniel Khalid. Wow, look at this mic. Okay. And I'm with the same name. I'm on LinkedIn also. If you guys want to look it up. Couple of questions that I get asked: that is this my real name? Yeah, this is my real name. Is this how it is pronounced? Of course not. That's not how it's pronounced. But again, you can call me Daniel. I've been butchered enough, so this is okay. I'm
So how do
fine.
you pronounce it?
Right, and that's the next question people ask: how do you pronounce my name? So it's pronounced da mi. Oh, that's the closest I could find. So this is how it is pronounced, Daniel. Okay. People try it for a couple of days and they come back to Daniel. So I'm still fine with it. Okay. All right. So let me give you a quick introduction more. I've been in this industry for about 15 years now. Most recently, I'm working with USA. It's a veterans insurance company up in North Phoenix. I moved to Phoenix just like last year. Before that, I was in Bentonville, Arkansas. I was working for Walmart over there in their IT division. If you know a little bit about the headquarters of Walmart, they are situated in Bentonville, Arkansas. That's probably the only company over there, and then Tyson Foods. Those are the only two companies over there. So I was with Walmart for over like 6 years before I moved over here. Okay. Again, I go by the same name on my LinkedIn. You can check it out. Currently, I'm teaching the cohort next door to you guys, and we are on week 22. So they're like 3 weeks away from graduating. If you guys have any questions to learn more about what they're going through and what's coming up, you can talk to the people next door. It'll be a good social, good interaction opportunity for you guys also to maybe network because they would be graduating in 3 weeks, and it will give you an idea what in the industry people are looking for and how they are going through the job search. Okay. Usually I'm teaching Tuesdays and Thursdays next door. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Of course, I don't know your name, so just give me a brief introduction if you are messaging me on LinkedIn. You have any questions, job search, mentorship, anything, I'm available for that. Okay. All right, so today we are going to start backend. Let me start this. Okay, so what I like to tell my class is you guys went through project one. You guys did JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and all the good stuff. This is what I like to call is the second phase of this program. Okay, this is the backend. All right. If you thought the first phase was difficult, backend is like 3 times difficult. I'm already telling you. You can talk to my class and they would agree with it. Front end, and if your goal was to become a front end engineer, UI developer, before today it stops. That's it. You guys are done. You did JavaScript. You know JavaScript. That's the most about JavaScript. All right. There are more complicated stuff with JavaScript, and you will learn in your career. But you know the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And that's the front end, right? But we are here as a full stack developer, right? And that's why the backend comes in. Without backend, the full stack concept is not complete. Okay, so that's why we are going to start backend. And again, as I said, this is 3 times more difficult, right? I am in my day job, I am a backend developer. I mostly deal with Java. That's my prime language. I will tell you, it's again 3 4 times more difficult. But here's the good thing, and that's why the backend developers get paid more also. That's a fact. You can look at the industry versus the front end engineers, because that's where the meat is. That's where all everything is going on, right? That's where all your algorithms run. That's all, the memory utilization and all the fun stuff. That's where this is happening. Okay. But all is not lost. So we'll see. This is what I was talking about. Remember, on your first day, you guys must have seen this MERN stack, right? So till now, well, you guys haven't done any of these right now. Okay. So we are now entering the MERN phase. So we are going to start from the end, Node.js. Okay. I'll talk about Node.js in a few minutes, but that's the first thing. And then After that, we are going to jump into Express. Then comes MongoDB, and React is the last part that we are going to learn. Okay, but again, this phase, the first phase, was important to understand because if you didn't understand HTML, CSS, or even JavaScript, none of this would actually make sense. Okay. Um, so again, this, as I was saying, it's kind of divided into three phases. We are on the server side now, this part. Okay, you guys have mostly done this, except React.js. Um, but even React is part of the front end. It's not really back end. So the reason React is actually at the end of the course is because you actually need to understand some of the concepts over here, some more concepts, and then kind of React will make sense to you. Okay. For now, our focus today and even this week would be backend, the Node.js part. Okay. Let's see. All right. When we talk about server, okay. So what is a server? What do you if I talk about server, what comes to mind? Like what is a server? Any thoughts? Anybody? When I talk about the word server.
Computer that stores and relays data, processes tasks remotely from the user.
Excellent. That is exactly what a server is, right? It's a physical box, right? That's what we think about when we talk about server, right? It's a hardware, it's a box that is kind of responding to some request, right? These days, it can be a software also. When I say a server as a software, what do I mean? Any idea? The cloud. Excellent, right? The cloud. These days we hear about cloud. Cloud is basically a server, but to us it's a software. There's no hardware piece to us. But eventually there is still hardware piece. You can't get away from that hardware piece. There has to be some hardware, but somebody else is kind of taking care of that. So that's why to us it's mostly like a software that we are deploying our applications. Okay. So all our backend code, when we talk about backend, please remember it always means that it's running on this box, on this thing called server, some kind of server. That's where your backend code is running. Okay. Um, you guys in your project one till now, you guys were using somebody else's APIs, right? You were using some third-party APIs that would give you some data back, right? In this time, you are going to create those APIs. Why? Because these APIs are backend. These are residing on some server. Okay? You are just making use of those APIs because somebody has created those APIs and deployed it to a server. Okay, and you're using them. In this program, in this part of the course, we are actually going to learn how to create these APIs now, right? And remember, where do these APIs reside? They reside in the server, in the backend. Okay. Now, to create those APIs, of course, we need to learn a language, and that's where Node.js comes in. I'll talk about Node.js more in just a few minutes. Okay. From the points that you see on the screen, the first two are the ones that you will be looking at during the course of this program. Creating those APIs, and the second one says rendering the HTML using a template engine. All right, this is an interesting one. It's usually a big pain point for students when this comes into play. But for now, today, that's not our point. But in this course, again, the first two are the ones that you will be working on. All right, so we kind of answered this question, what a server is. Any questions? Any confusion what a server is? Anybody has a different definition, or they thought server was something else other than what we talked about? Is everybody clear on the server part? All right. So let's look at the next part. So in the server, I was talking about a response, right? Response. Okay. So you will see two things whenever we talk about a server. a request, and a response. Okay? Every time in the code or anywhere you see the word request, this means it's a request that is coming to the server. Okay, this is the direction. That's always going to be the direction. So these keywords, request and response, are from the server point of view. It's not from the client. I'll talk about the client, but every time you hear or you are coding, you will come across these two words, request and response. So always keep these two words from the point of view of the server. Okay, because if you are looking at this point of view from the user, these kind of switch around, right? But that's not the case. Every time you see these two keywords, we're talking from the server's point of view. So a server receives a request always, and the server then responds to this request in a different way. Okay. Now the response could be an HTML page, right? What do I mean by this? So a server is the one that will have some code, some HTML page stored over here. Okay, and when the client asks for it, it actually responds with an HTML page. Okay, it could be some JSON data. Okay, the APIs you are using, all of them kind of reside over here. You would be making a request to get that data, and the server would be responding with a JSON. Okay, so these are two typical ones that you would be seeing in our program. The server would be responding with some JSON data or some HTML file. Okay, now what is a client? What do we mean when we say client? Any idea? The user. Anything else? A web browser. Okay, for us it's a user or a web browser, but typically it's a browser. Okay, so a browser makes a request to the server, and the server responds with something to the client. That's what it means. Okay, you will see it says web browser. Okay, all right. Again, remember you guys were creating those HTML pages. Eventually you will see those HTML pages needs to reside somewhere. This client, where is the residence of this client? It's on your client machine, on whoever is trying to access your website, right? That's where this client resides. It's your browser. It's your Chrome browser that somebody has installed on their laptops, on their machines. Okay? So the HTML page actually doesn't reside over here. Eventually you will see that your server is the one that is a repository for all the data, including your HTML pages and everything. When the client makes a request, when it says, hey, go to www.something.com, what happens is the request finds this server, it goes to this server, something.com, finds the HTML page that resides over here, and then responds with that HTML page, and then your browser kind of renders that HTML page. Okay, always remember the .html file, it is always going to be stored on your server side. It's never on your client side. Your client doesn't know anything about it. It only makes a request. What it knows is that I need to go to this website. This is where my server is located, something.com. And it finds this server. This server has all the HTML pages that you're looking for. And then it kind of responds with an HTML file, and your browser knows how to render or how to process that code and shows up that HTML. Okay, same with your JSON data. Okay, your APIs, the third-party APIs that you were requesting, they kind of reside on the server side, and you make a call saying www.something.com/API/ let's say results. Okay, the JSON data kind of resides over here. It sees the request, takes the JSON, and kind of sends it back to your browser, and your browser kind of knows what to do with your JSON. Okay, so you see the power of the server. Everything is kind of residing over here. None of these things are here. Your client are kind of, they don't know what to do. with that data if that data is not available on your server side. Okay? All right, any questions before we proceed? You guys understand the concept of web client, server, request, and response? Is everybody clear on that? Okay, request and response. Again, we are talking from the point of view of the server, not from the client. Every time you will see in the code, you will see some variables called request and response. Again, always think that you are talking from the server point of view, not from the client. Okay? All right, so we went over this. All right. If you don't have any question, let's take a few minutes. Make sure you guys understand. Just talk to your neighbor. Kind of explain the four concepts that I explained: server, web client, request, and response. Just take like a couple of minutes, and then we'll start um, the next part in this. Okay.
Sir, somebody over. Yeah. Client. Your computer. Browser. I want to be used and then response here. You can have what you see request is traffic. It's like say oh it's my birthday and I wake up and cake. So I'm gonna go to Fry's and I'm gonna go to the bakery section. I'm gonna buy a chocolate cake and then I'm gonna bring it home. That's the response. Yeah, the request is chocolate cake. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, does anyone mention money? Just gonna get like a basic or I've heard but it's actually kind of cool. Instead, it's just like research, like or like you have like all these different things about, which is kind of really fun. That's right. So I was kind of focusing on like the design side because I know that something in HTML, crazy stuff. Yeah, for hours. I was just looking at my animations and turning like text and SVGs and being able to the actual like stroke of it and like literally control where it goes. 3JS. Yesterday I that's like yeah, that's pretty much all.
All right. Let's go ahead. Any questions before we move on to the next one? The next part is Node.js. All right. So when you guys were doing your project, you guys must have run into some code that said, "Hey, this is how you can copy this code in Node.js and use it." Did you guys run into that? You were trying to use an API and you were like, "Hey, oh, this is so much simpler if you just use Node.js." Right? How many of you thought that? Oh, if you just knew Node.js. That's what my class thought also. And my second project, they were like, "Oh my God, I don't want to know about Node.js." It kind of it's a natural feeling that what you don't know, you're like, "Oh, if I just knew this." I mean, Node.js is good, but it comes with all its own set of problems. Not problems, more like it does have some learning but we'll talk about this more. Okay, so Node.js. Now I was talking about the server, right? What is the language of the client or the browser? Like what language does your browser understand? HTML. What else? CSS, and then JavaScript, right? These are the three languages that your browser understands. So it would make sense that your server should also understand some language, right? But it's not HTML, it's not CSS, it's actually also not JavaScript, all right? So your server requires another language that is not one of those. Now, if you were taking this course 10 years ago, you would have to learn Java or C Sharp or Python or Perl or something because those are the languages that your server understands. Okay, lucky for us, today there in 2009 they released a new server-side language which is Node.js. The good thing about Node.js is that the syntax is same as your JavaScript. Listen. So somebody took the JavaScript and kind of made it work on your server side. Okay, and it's called Node.js. Now, um, it's a very simple explanation, but please do not ever confuse that JavaScript that's over here is exactly the same that is over here. This is referred to as Node.js. The syntax is same, but behind the scenes is totally different. It's actually written. The Node.js is actually written in C also. C. It uses some JavaScript. Mostly, it's written in C and a couple of more languages. Okay. The only thing good about it is that the syntax for Node.js is same. Is almost same as JavaScript. So you don't have to learn a new language. Okay. Now again, as I was saying, 10 years ago, you would have to learn a totally different language at this point in time. But with Node.js, what it gives us is that you don't have to learn anything. The syntax is same, almost same as JavaScript. Okay. Um, as this is a good point, this is also a really big confusion point that I've seen with students. When you are developing your full stack app with your front end and your back end, you're making it itself. People get confused because they're writing code in JavaScript over here, and then guess what? They're writing backend code also in Node.js, which is kind of similar to JavaScript. And that's where the confusion is. They're like, oh, I'm trying to run a library over here, but it doesn't run, right? Well, you are trying to run your Node.js code in your browser, so it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. Okay, your browser does not recognize, does not know anything about Node.js. There are only three languages that your browser understands: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There is nothing else your browser will understand. Okay, but when you bring these two together, that's where the confusion happens because the syntax is same and people are trying to install some packages that are actually node packages and they're trying to install on their browser. They're like, well, I'm getting an error. Yeah, it's not going to work. Okay, so these are the points. Just keep in mind. So when I'm going to talk about backend, I'm going to say Node.js, right? When I'm talking about JavaScript, please understand I'm talking about the client side. I'm talking about the JavaScript that runs in your browser. I'm not talking about Node.js. Okay. All right. So Node.js is still young. 10 years is still a small amount of time for a new language. Versus if you compare it with Java or C Sharp, they have been here for like 20 plus years, 25 plus years, and they have been molded and they have gone through some trials and they have made it better every time. Okay, so Node.js is still, I would say, still upcoming. It's a good language to learn. And if you go to Node.js side, you will see these big name companies are using Node.js. I would tell you, please don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by that. The thing is, Node.js still in big, large corporations, they kind of depend on Java or C Sharp or some other language that has been proven or that has been there for like 20, 25 years. They use Node.js, but they use in like a smaller project, right? You will see, I think, Netflix, even Walmart, you will see some big names over there. But if you dig deeper, they are like small projects that they are using Node.js. For the bigger systems, it's still Java or C Sharp. Mostly it's Java. Okay. But again, for us, for new developers, it's good to know Node.js. A lot of what I've seen the trend is a lot of startups, smaller companies, they kind of use Node.js. It's free, it's open source, it doesn't have any licensing. You don't have to pay for anything, so it's kind of a good choice for those kind of companies. Okay, so if you are working for a company, for a smaller company, for a startup, you will most probably run into a code that is written in Node.js. Okay, larger corporations, more established ones, for example, USA also, Walmart, they kind of use more traditional languages like Java, mostly Java. They have a lot of their backend written in Java. Okay, they do have some smaller projects that are being written in some different languages, but mostly for bigger corporations, they are looking for like support and licensing and all that stuff. So that's why they use that. Okay. All right. Oh, that's what I was saying. Okay. Take a few minutes, look up who's using Node.js. You will see some really big names over there. Again, it doesn't mean that they have suddenly woke up the morning and say, oh, Node.js, we are going to create our whole system in Node.js. That's not how it is. Again, as I was saying, Node.js is still young compared to other languages. So they are using it, but they are using like small components, smaller projects, but they're still using it. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so if I Google companies using Node.js, it kind of shows up Netflix, LinkedIn, Uber, PayPal, Medium. Okay, eBay, even NASA is using. I mean that tells you that don't be fooled. I mean, NASA can convert to Node.js in like like 10 years. So they are using, but for like smaller components. That's what I would say. Okay, let's go ahead and so this is what I talked about. Node.js. What are some of the benefits? It's the syntax is almost same as JavaScript, so you don't have to learn much. There are a few kinks, and we'll work those out. Um, the second part, plugins. These are called packages, and we'll take a look at it. So, with any other language, they kind of come in with some other people have done some solutions for you. So those are the packages. Those are third-party packages that you can install and make your Node.js app even more usable. Faster implementation, we'll take a look at that. And the last one, single-threaded asynchronous model. That's the most important part, and that's what Node.js is kind of known for. Okay, so let's talk about that. So first, let's talk about synchronous threading. What it means is, let me give you an example. Okay, so I'm the instructor over here, and you guys are asking me questions. So I get a first question. Somebody asks me a question, and I'm like, okay, I'm focused on you, and I'm going to stand here, and until I answer your question, I'm not going to move to the next person. Okay. Once I have the answer, I answer, and then I move on to the next one. Okay. And then I'm stopped over. I'm kind of blocked over here. Okay. Then I answer. When this is complete, then I go to the next one. Then I go to the next one. Then I go to the next one. Right. So if you have a question over there, you have to wait your turn until I get all students, and then I get to that point. Okay, you see the disadvantage? I'm kind of blocked over here. Nobody is available, right? Everybody else is waiting until somebody else's question gets answered. What I could do is, if I am answering this question, I could assign TAs to the next students, but there are 4 TAs, so kind of they will be blocked over here. They follow the same rules that they cannot move forward until they have completely answered the question. So I'll be answering this one, and then 4 over there, then everybody else is still blocked. Okay. This is the same with synchronous threading. When your server receives a request, okay, it's kind of blocked until it responds to it, okay, and then it's not going to go on to the next request that comes in. Your server is kind of blocked. That's what we call synchronous threading. Okay, so Node.js kind of takes it a step further, and they use something called asynchronous threading. How does this work? Now, if I get a question asked, I'm going to take that question, I'm going to listen to it, I'm going to keep it in my mind, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, and then I'm going to listen to this question. The first question is in back of my mind, and I'm thinking about it constantly. Okay, I don't have an answer yet. Okay, I get the second question, same thing. Okay, the third question, by the time I'm over here, I know what was the answer for the first one. Okay, so I'm going to go down and I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to move on. Okay, I'm going to come over here, same thing. Now, this was the question that was asked me first. This was the third question. But let's suppose I get my third question answered. Like this was a much easier question. So I'm like, oh, I know the answer. So I'm going to answer this question first, right? That question is still unanswered. I'm going to keep moving, right? So the pattern is, as the answers come to me, I'm going to come back to the person who asked me that question and answer that, right? But I'm not blocking. I'm going and I'm taking new questions. It's, you see, it's much faster than the first approach. Now everybody is kind of getting their questions to me, and I have time to think about it. Oh, okay, I'm going to keep thinking about it. As soon as I get an answer, I'm going to come back and answer that question. That is what Node.js calls asynchronous threading. It takes in request, okay, and then moves on to the next one, asynchronous, okay. It's not going to block. It's going to move on to the next one. As soon as it has answer for one of the previous one, it's going to come back to that request, answer that, and then move on. Okay, so your server or your Node.js server is never blocked. That's what we call it. And that's what we call is asynchronous. Okay, again, asynchronous threading, your server is not blocked. It takes in a request and then goes on to the next one, goes on to the next one, goes on to the next one. When it has an answer from one of the previous requests, it's going to come to that request, answer that, and then move on to the wherever in the queue it was. Okay, much faster, and then it is processing a lot more versus just being blocked over here forever and then going to the next one. Okay, so this model is called asynchronous threading. In JavaScript also, you must have run into when you're making your Ajax call, right? You guys remember? It's all async, right? Your Ajax call, when you make the call, it executes the next piece of the code right after that, even though you don't have the data back, right? That's what the async is. It does not wait for your call to come back. Whenever your call comes back, it will move to that piece of the code and then kind of execute what you're trying to say. That's why we have those promises and all that stuff. It's kind of confusing, but that's where the power comes in, the asynchronous threading part of JavaScript or Node.js. Okay, it makes it more faster. It's not blocking. Your server is not blocked. It is being utilized at its max. Okay? Questions? Everybody understands asynchronous threading? Okay, this is the differentiating factor with Node.js. Well, different other languages also kind of do the same thing, but when you're talking about Node.js, this is how it is built on. Okay? Questions? Everybody good? All right. All right. Last chance. Then we'll start looking into Node.js. Okay. Again, to me, the concepts are more important as the coding and everything will come more naturally if you understand the concepts. Asynchronous, always remember, you cannot escape from them. My class always complains, but if you're doing web development, you're doing JavaScript, the async part you cannot escape. That's all over JavaScript and Node.js. Okay, so it is better to understand how everything works, how the asynchronous nature of Node.js works, how the asynchronous nature of JavaScript works, because that's all you will be doing day in and day out. Okay. Otherwise, you can see what happens. If you are not using asynchronous, your client kind of is blocked. It's going to be a frozen screen with a wheel going around, and you can't actually do anything. Okay, that's like a bad user experience. Okay, all right. No question. Let's go ahead and start the coding part. The first thing is we need to make sure that Node.js is installed in everybody's computer. I'm pretty sure you guys were asked to install in your pre-work, but we'll give a few minutes to make sure that this is installed. So if I type in node space -v, I get a version number, and this means that this is the Node version that I have installed on my machine. Okay, so you guys can give it a try. Again, if you have a different version, please don't be alarmed. It's okay. If you go to Node.js side, I actually updated this version just like last night. I was on 10.15, I think. Okay, so they have the 10.16 one. LTS means long-term support, so this is more stable, and they have support available for this one. So we'll start with this one. This one is it has the latest features, but it might not be as stable. Okay, so what I did was I have installed 10.16.0, and that's what I have on my computer. So if you go to your command prompt, git bash, if you're on Windows, if you type in node -v, space -v, you should see a version number. Okay. All right. Anybody who does not have node installed, because I'll give few minutes if you don't have it installed. Otherwise, we can move forward. Everybody has installed. You can see the version numbers. Good. Um, Another check is if you just type in node, right? It will give you this kind of prompt, right? Um, if you type in some operations like 1 + 1, kind of gives you the result. Okay, that's another check to make sure that node is installed. It's kind of console for the node, right? And how do you come out of it? You press Control C twice, and then you can come out of this console. Control C twice. If you, by mistake or by chance, you just type in node, and then it will take you into a prompt. Okay, so node, you will see this caret symbol. Okay, and you want to exit out of it. It's Control C twice. All right, so if you guys are all set, let's create our first Node.js program. And as every new language that we learn, traditionally we start with the hello world program. So I'm going to start with the same hello world. Okay, let me make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. All right, so I said Node.js kind of similar to JavaScript. So the extension for any Node.js file is going to be .js as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and create hello world.js. Okay, now I'm going to write a simple line and then we'll go from this. I'm going to console log hello world. Now you guys have seen console log, right? When you do console log, what happens? Where does this show up? In your console, but where is the console? In the browser, right? Browser console. Now, is this code running in my browser or in my server? The Node.js code. On the server. So if I do a console log, will it show up in the browser? Maybe not. It's not the browser, so it wouldn't show up in your browser actually. So where would it show up? It's going to show up where you run it. What was that?
Your command line.
Your command line. That's your console. Again, console is a general term. But since we are introduced to console with our browser, so we are like, every time console shows up, you'll be like, oh, it's going to be in my browser. Now, console is a more general term. So if you run this in your command line, this code, that's where you will see your console log. So let's go ahead and run this. Do you guys use the terminal in Visual Studio? No? Okay, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. You can go from here, go to the file where this file exists. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter, right? What we are trying to do is where this file is. That's the path we want to go to. Visual Studio has a same command line, command prompt built in. It's kind of easier if I just right click and say open in terminal. It brings up the embedded screen, but it's the same thing. The advantage is that it already takes me to the folder that I want to run this code in. Okay. All right, let's start from there. Now, how do I run this file? You say node and then this file name. That's it. Okay. If you press enter, you see this word hello world. So the console for Node.js apps is this, your terminal. Your terminal is the console. You see there's no browser. I didn't have to create an HTML file. That's why I love Node.js. No HTML file, no CSS. I don't have to connect both of them. Nothing of that sort, right? You write your code and you run your code by saying node and the file name and That's where the magic happens. So this is your console. That's where it is going to output your whatever you're trying to console. All right. Any questions? All right. I'll give you a few minutes. Take a few minutes. This is exercise number 2. It's you just have to like console log and I understand you guys pull from GitLab. Do I need to give any more instructions or it's all right? It's exercise. Right. It's exercise number 2. What you have to do is you have to do a console log for Sriracha. Okay. Sriracha goes great on nothing. Okay. Interesting. So you just have to console log. The purpose is we are trying to make sure that everybody is at this point. Working?
Sometimes like when they're rushing, if you just fix it, it will keep running. Yeah. And then I don't it's not working. Something's already done. So where's the strong? What did you get?
So yeah, this isn't in the notes right now.
Yes. Click that. Oh, I He's doing the oh, that's fine. Make sure you trash it. You don't have to site transfer. Yeah, because because if you close it, it might still be. I think it's you raise it flash because you're right. I don't know how to find it. So now the box oh, yes. Now you can how do you know oh, yeah.
Yes.
Can you give a quick preface on how to select your default shell? Because most of the students have Windows machines.
Default shell?
Yeah, they
This one?
like in VS Code. Yeah.
Oh, in VS Code,
Yeah.
right click, open in terminal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what?
Just right click, but like here, they all have PowerShell as their options.
Okay.
And it looks like if you just select default shell,
Okay.
it wasn't.
It wasn't sure. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. You don't have to spend time. We can go back to our. I can start doing
right
this.
click and open the default.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. We can go back to our terminal, the git bash one, and start working with it.
It's done by no space on file. Yeah.
So, right, I just noticed he's on Bash and I'm on PowerShell.
Yeah.
I was looking at something I just noticed.
Sometimes it is the worst when you cannot get something running in here. Just do it in your Lego terminal. but
Yeah,
most
so
of the
like,
time
it's sort of like alternative to Xcode or Sketch.
Oh, alternative text.
Yeah, so.
Oh, variables that come
Yeah. It's cool, it's like, see if I want to,
yeah, I got this.
Yeah, no, I get that. If I can do it all over here, which is bad.
Also, when you close it between tracks,
PowerShell. Right, it's different. I'm not sure.
yeah,
You should be able to just like,
you get to the location where on files, you have to convert it to a folder where you have that file. You could technically do it the other way, you can know, and then there's big path.
Yeah.
So you could do node C / user / travel all the way. That's like, but it's easier. It's always best to be in there.
Yeah. I like
yeah. I don't figure out how to.
So you need to
I mean, I can do Xcode in parts.
So the next step is research. Inside the file, JavaScript should run. But when you log,
And I can just do that.
yes, I see. Why is it people PowerShell? I don't know. Well, some of them are. I think it hates the people. So we're thinking about people in those jobs.
And I don't want the actual like code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like there is I don't know.
Some ways.
Yeah, so you want that as a
website.
no. Because it's like the same exact
They're not all yeah. I was watching this guy. And then we literally did that.
No one else is yeah. It's gonna work. Yeah, it's gonna work.
Yeah, so I watched
Google helps you automate
there's a way where you can actually, yeah, right here.
oh man, once it gets to manage, install the microphones. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So see, you can do this and grab it and then let's.
Make sure you because it's the make sure you
Why is touch not working?
All right, let's go ahead and start the next one. So I know I hear there was some confusion about using it in Visual Studio. If it is working, good. If it's not, I'm going to switch over to my terminal. I didn't anticipate to create any confusion. I'm sorry about that. So I'll switch over to my command prompt. If you guys got it working, that's good. But it's the same thing. Okay. So I'll switch over. And for Windows people, it's git bash. For Mac, it's just terminal. Okay, I'll run my Node.js in terminal. Okay. All right. Any questions before we proceed on? Everybody was able to get Node.js working. Console log. Everybody understands why console log is over here and not in the browser, because this code is never going to run in our browser. Okay, it always runs on your server. For us right now, this is our server. All right. So let's get to the little bit more interesting parts of Node.js. Now I've typed in, I'm console logging something called process.argv. All right. You guys have no idea what this is, and I'll go through it. But just by looking at it, what do you guys think is the data type for process? This variable called process. What's the data type of this? Object. Excellent. You guys see that? Again, you guys have no idea. I have no idea what this is, but by looking at it, I can tell this is an object. Why? Because it's using a dot notation, right? So process tells me is an object, right? Okay. Have I declared process anywhere? I have not, right? So what does this tell me? That process is built in or a global object. It's built in. So where is it built in? I'm using Node.js. Node. So process is a global object that is built in Node, right? Simple. Again, we came to this conclusion even without knowing any of this stuff. But we can look at it. We can tell this is an object. Since I haven't declared this object anywhere, this must be a global object, and it should be built in Node into Node. Okay, and that's the right answer. All right. Let's see what argv is. So if I run this code. After hello world, I see some output. Now, by looking at this output, now can I tell what is the data type for argv? So process is an object. What is argv? What is the data type for argv? Just looking at this console. It's an array. All right, you guys see it? Why? These square brackets kind of tell me that this is an array. If it is an object, it's curly braces. Right? If it is an array, it's square brackets. Excellent. All right. So process is an object because I'm using a dot notation, and argv tells me it's an array. All right. So let's see what argv is. And how many elements does this array has? 2. Right? You guys see it? 2 elements. So argv is an array. Argv stands for argument. The name kind of comes from the Linux word, so that's why they are still using argv. But basically, it means arguments. All right, arguments that are passed into your Node program, which is this. All right. So argv is going to be an array, and then if you see, I'm not assigning anything to this array, but it already has some default elements. Okay. So when you are using argv, the first element or at index 0. It always has the path of your Node.js installation. On your computer, where you have installed Node, it will always give you that path. Okay, that's index 0. It's kind of reserved. Path to Node.js installation. Okay. The second index or index number 1 is also reserved, and it will always give you the path of the program that you're trying to run. Path to Node program. Okay. Again, argv is an array. The first 2 elements are kind of reserved. The first 2 indexes are reserved, 0 and 1. 0 always outputs the path where your node is installed. So if you do a process argv and console log, you guys can see where your node is actually installed, the version that you're using. The second index or index number 1 will tell you the program that you're trying to run. What's the path of this program? Okay. Everybody clear on that? Any questions so far? Good. Now, everything else is available for you to use. Okay. Now, how do we use this this array? What happens is that when you are writing your program, you can get some input from your console. What do I mean by this? If I run node hello, okay, and then it's not a. Let me see if this is better. Yeah. Okay. And if you say space and then you type anything, it doesn't matter. Everything after the program name are called arguments. Okay? Arguments, argv. This is the array of arguments. Okay? So anything that you type in with a space is going to be stored in your argv array by Node.js. Okay? Let me output this and see what happens. All right, you see, same array. The first two are reserved, so don't concern about that. The second two are the ones that I'm passing over here. These are called arguments. Now these could be anything. Okay, it could be a string, numbers, anything you want. Okay, so these are called arguments, and this is how you pass in something to your Node.js program. And now, why would this be useful? Okay, let's suppose you are creating a program that kind of adds these two numbers. Okay, so you are actually asking the user who's using your Node.js program to, hey, give me two numbers, and that's how you would say. You would say, oh, give me two numbers, and then your program is going to do something and it's going to add. And we'll see how it does it. But those are called arguments. Okay, again, they all come in the argv array. The array, the first two elements are reserved. Anything else will be part of the different indexes. And you can pass in more than 1, 3, 4. All of these are available in your argv array. Okay? Questions?
Just one note is they always come as strings.
Oh, I was getting there. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
All right, David already gave it away.
Sorry.
I was going to ask what is the data type for these arguments. David, what is the data type for these arguments?
Strings.
Strings. It's important to remember, even though I'm entering a number, it's always going to come as a string. Very important. Why? Let's suppose my program is saying I'm going to add the numbers that come in to my program, right? So what I'm going to say is, let's go ahead and add the number that comes in. So my process argv. How do I access my first argument? Index at. So I can't use 0, I can't use 1, it has to be 2 and forward. Okay? And then I'm going to add this, and then I'm going to also add my process.argv argument number 3. All right? So this is my program that kind of adds two numbers. Now you see the output? The output is 12. Why is it 12? Because it's a string. So any argument that comes in is always going to be a string. Very important. So even if you're passing in a string or a number, it always comes in a string. So if you want to use it as a number, what do you have to do? Convert it into a number. And similar to JavaScript, Node.js has the same function called parse. Let's use parse int. Okay? And then you can convert this into a number. So you'll say the string that comes in, parse it into an int, and then go ahead and add this. Okay? Let me clear this. And now you added, ooh, what did I miss? This one. Oh, thank you. And now it gives me the number 3. Okay? All right, questions? Yes?
So I noticed when it output the concatenated string, it was white, and when it outputted the number, it's yellow. Is that color an indicator of type?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you guys might see a different color depending on, I'm using on Mac, so it might be this color scheme.
They all are
Right.
color indicated?
Yes. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? All right. If no question, let's do exercise number 5. Okay. So let's go ahead and see what exercise number 5 is. Create a command line node application that takes in 2 parameters and outputs whether they are equal or not. So we start off by just creating a JavaScript file, JS file first, and then this is the one that's going to run. So let me this is exercise number 5. Okay. So even before I start solving, what I do is just make sure that, okay, so this is, my files are there, my connection is there, so it's kind of working. Now I can start the coding part. So it takes in 2 parameters, process.argv, and then it's checking if they're equal or not.
And then compare that. So how do you compare? What's the compare? So what's the
But you have to check something that just compares the longer values that drive
Typically equals this. Typically equals this.
I remember you pushing.
Catch. I don't know if that's now the Markdown file is going to run on.
So let's see.
We do this.
So it actually, yeah, but like this is going, that's like
Yeah.
Items narrate.
yeah, pretty much. So that's just what it is. Yeah,
I need to be a
I think it's pretty deep, but
And then you have to parse
No, I really, yeah, I know. You know, evaluate it out true or false. Yeah.
yeah, and then they brought up. And basically, yeah.
So, yeah. One thing I've learned.
It's our money.
Yeah. Well, because that's true.
So I'm getting two arguments. Let's save it to a variable. Let's say arg1.
Am I right? How do you how do you console log it? Do you use you just take console log and then comparison?
Okay, so that's my first argument. Oh, process dot argv, and I can store the second one in a second variable. Argv third index. Oops. Okay. Let's go ahead and console log to make sure these are working, expecting what I'm getting back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to run parameter check and 1 space 2. Okay, so I'm getting these back. This means this part is working. The next one is I need to compare them. So I'm going to use an if statement. So if argument 1 is equal to argument 2, okay, and then I'm going to console log true, right? Otherwise, you can do console log false. Okay, so if I run this with 1 and 2, it should output false. Okay, it says false. If you do same, it's going to give you true. You can run with the string also. This should give false because both are different. And if I run this, gives me true. Okay. Any questions on this exercise? Was everybody able to kind of get to it? Yes. Yes.
So for mine, I just take console log plus in parentheses plus is not RB2.
Mm-hmm.
And then triple equal sign plus is our RB3.
Yes.
And I still have true and false.
Yes.
Should
But
I do it that way?
no, I'm coming to that. The only thing in your program is you're using parse int, so your program only will work for numbers. If I put in a string just like I did, right? It's not going to work in that case. True, right? If I put in a string like names or something, that's when it will fail. So you don't necessarily need a parse int, but otherwise your solution is correct. And I was going to get to that. That if there's any other way, not a better way, but a shorter way to do this, and that's the way. Anybody else followed what she said? So it's basically one line, right? Console log and compare. The other way, what she is suggesting is you do a console log, and then process. Oops. Come on, help me. Process.argv, and then So we can't use 0 and 1. We can just this 2 and process dot argv3. Correct? This is what you have, right? Yeah. This all these 1 to 11 lines can be condensed into just one line. Man, you guys are fast. I mean, I took my class to get to here. I had to actually explain what's going on over here. So that's cool. So it should give you true. You can comment this out. Yeah.
I have one question.
And this has the same effect as the first one. Awesome. Yes.
I think you had a question first.
Yes.
So the data type of arguments you want to string, right? How do you pass list of numbers if you want, like you want to get list of interest or numbers and you want to access them?
Right. So the question is, if it's always going to be string, how do I pass in numbers? That's your program. If your program is expecting numbers, then you will have to handle it.
I'm saying
It's the
list
same
of
for
numbers.
lists of numbers, so like putting an array as an argument for
As
the,
an argument.
So so if you're passing like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Right? And then this should come as a array, you are saying.
No, not like that. Like, I have two arguments, one is 1, and the second argument is like 2, 3, 4, or something like that. List of numbers.
Oops. Like this?
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to come as it's always going to assume that this is one string and this is one string.
you have to create an array out of it inside.
Right. From your this console, there's no way. I mean, it's always going to be a string. Now, if you're expecting an array, then you have to write in your code that convert this into an array using some JavaScript functions. Yeah, but if you do this, it's going to say 1, and then it's going to give you a string 2, 3, 4, which you probably already have tried. Yeah. Yes.
So I'm noticing you're using vars. We've been using constant.
Okay,
Does
awesome.
that all-
Yeah.
Does that all function the same way in Node that it does in?
It's the
Like
same
those-
concept. Yeah, I didn't know if you guys were already on let or not. But if you guys are using let, I'm going to start using let. I was
Yeah,
going
we're-
to start.
We're using constant let, so I wasn't
Yes.
sure if.
Yeah, it's the same concept in Node.js also.
Okay.
So preferred way is to start using let and const. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's get to some little bit trickier part. Exercise number 6. Let's do. All right. So you are creating a calculator, and these are the commands that you need to handle. So node calculator.js tells me that I'm running a program called calculator.js. So you're going to create a file with this name, okay? And then it has 3 parameters, 3 arguments: add, space 1, space 2. So this means my program is going to get 3 arguments. The first looks like, well, all of them are string, but if we are looking at it, the first one is a string, the second 2 are going to be numbers. Okay? And then the output for the first command is going to be 3. This tells me that the parameter number 3 and 4 should be added because that's what they're asking. It should give me 3. The second one, if I type in subtract, and then the 2 numbers is going to subtract those 2 numbers. Same with multiply, divide, and remainder. Okay, so I'm creating a Node program called calculator.js. So start with that, and then it's taking 3 arguments. The first one looks to be a string, so you don't have to convert it. The other 2 are always going to be numbers, so we need to convert that. And then based on the first argument, these operations should be performed on it.
There are probably some extensions that right now it is up to. I know that it keeps autofilling other stuff, so
Yeah, autofilling.
not process. Yeah, you would have to
There is a way.
look for something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's two, like that. Things on something that's not a number. So remember, there will have, in this case, you will have five items to be correct. No, what the program is complete. In the operation, which is a string. And then with numbers. So one thing that should be operation, right? No, you're right. RV array can have five items. The node, the name of your program, the operation, and the two numbers. So 3 is gonna be, sorry, not 3. Yeah. What is the index of the third one? There you go. It's now at 0, right? So your operation is gonna be on 2. Your first number is gonna be on 3. Your second number is gonna be on 4. Right? So when we start looking at that, I will create 3 variables. One for, let's say, I call it operation. That's gonna store my operation. Subtract. So the second one is gonna be OP1, third one OP2 for the numbers, or down 1, down 2, whatever you wanna call it. But you need to do some checking in it, which you're not doing on the so they're mounted the price. So before you do your operations, you have to check is this adding, is this divided. So you have to check on the operation, what it's doing. Right? So that's why I said you need to do 3 of those, and then you do stop checking for each condition. So you actually put 2 in there, you pass. So it's not, I still understand what you are looking at by your RV. So you are going to get your numbers from those arguments in RV, right? Yes, because otherwise you would have to process RV. 3 process RV, check process RV 2, this way you just call it num 1 and you like 4 as opposed to 13. That's just the difference. You could be using process RV throughout the whole thing. It just why? I'm lazy. No, I don't like typing too many things. No. Oh, wait, oh, yeah, somebody's, yeah. That's, why are you doing so? That's not true. Why are you doing that? That's the way it is. So the students.
I think it won't fit. Just like making argument a variable and then it's like plus and minus. Oh, do the math. Like for example, so
I've not done the algebra
program
Have you
two
done
numbers.
the exponent? I did the exponent.
So
you use math.
or
No, I actually did some for a living.
I mean it's fine. But then you have to play your
It just
three
results, right?
Yeah.
I forgot what it was. It was like
the two numbers.
the algebra was
Yeah, I think you need
I
to.
would.
You probably need, because it's a string, so you need to create a substring which extracts the x, and then set x as.
Yeah, well, the operator.
I'm just trying to figure out.
And then whatever the user thinks.
I suspect over
Program actually stuck at that. I think like you kind of need to have like conditional logic. So if the operator you minus b minus if the operator
Try my
so like
remainder.
or number first number and then second number or first number
Yeah, infinity.
no it's three.
You're just
That's
giving
the second
way
one.
plus sign.
Four divided by
Grade two
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
so it's zero. Yeah, so zero is
Yeah, thank you very much. I get,
three, okay. Zero is no. One
it's running one more time, that's why.
Two is
I equals 0, I is less than Q4 plus plus. So I need to do I equals 4. So it only runs. We're not using arrays, we're using an actual. Yeah, whatever. I think.
And again, as soon as you
Yeah,
type C
exactly.
after that, it's gonna complete it. So you won't see
Well, see what happened.
Right now,
I got it.
So now.
also make sure your parse is
So. So let's see. So let me just. We'll just say.
Yes, I know, that's working. Because it got so now why is it not? What is it?
So if operator and or not one place.
How do you?
There's no spaces. So, and we assume it's always going to be in the same form, so we can assume that it's not having spaces.
What's the next area?
So we take this. First, we're going to do.
No, one of these, right? Put a plus.
So.
That's an array, right? I don't care. Point P index 0. No. Point P index 0.
Let 1. We're going to set this one to 10. Say let n1 equal to substring.
Also, again,
We have an array, 5 items. What is that index zero?
One equal to.
No, what is that index zero? Look at the array. Tell me what
Oh, that's so wise. That's wise.
Where is index zero? That's it, perfect. Index 1. Perfect. Index 2. So it's using this exactly, because you do parse int on a string that's not a variable number. You get not a number, and then you add the number to not a number.
Because it's one element, what we want to do. So the reason why I'm thinking, so it's not splice, you're right.
There you go.
It's a substring or subsystem or something. So let me show you what
Yes. There you go.
So you're
That's why I tell me what is exactly
well, I got put some
so we need to
You're supposed to actually
Oh yeah, you have to add
certain.
So we're not doing the precedence. They're asking you to pass the operation and the two numbers as arguments in the command line. You hard-coded everything in your program. So what you're supposed to do is type Pascal add 1, 2 in the command line. And then the program will take those arguments and use them to do the operation.
Right, so I'm going to start solving at least the first one. So if you guys are stuck, you can see. So we need 3 arguments in our calculator.js. So make sure this is working. Calc node. Okay, so this is good. I'm on the right path. So I'm going to get 3 variables, 3 arguments. So let's go ahead and start. The first one is going to be a string with add, subtract, multiply, divide, or remainder. Okay, so I'm going to save that in a. These are my operands. Okay, this is going to be my process dot arg v index number 2. Okay, because 0 and 1 are reserved, and this would be 3, 4, and 5. So that's my first, and then my first number would be in process.rv index number 3, and my last number would be in index number 4. Okay. I'm going to console log these to make sure that I'm getting the correct ones before I move forward. So I have num1 and num2. Okay, so the command line is calculator add 1 and 2. So add 1 space 2. Okay, so I'm getting all 3. If I do subtract 5 and 2, okay, so I'm getting all the inputs in my program. Now I can go ahead and proceed with these 3 arguments. Okay, everybody clear on why this is 2, 3, and 4? Any questions on that? Okay, the first 2 are reserved, everything else is on the next indexes. All right. Now, based on the operand, you have to write the code to solve the problem. So first one, let's do the first one is going to be add. So are you guys using if or switch statements? Anybody use switch? Okay, so we'll start with this one. So if my operand is add, right, then what I have to do, I have to add the two numbers. Let's go ahead and create a var. Oh, let output. Okay. So I'm going to assign my output is equal to. So my numbers are in num1 and num2. Num1 plus num2. Okay. And then I can console log output. Okay. Looks good. Any issues here? So if I do 1 and 2, so what am I missing here? Should give me 3. Any idea what am I missing? Yes. Parse. Here. So parse int. That's it. And then let's go ahead and add this over here too. Okay, so we'll add 1, 2, and then it gives me the output 3. Okay, same with the subtract one. So you can do else if operand is equal to subtract, right? My output is going to be same thing, parse int, parse int num1, and then subtract with parse int num2. Okay, so let's try this one. This is going to be subtract, and let's give 5 and 2 should give me back 3. Okay, and so forth. So you can go ahead and complete the multiply is going to be the asterisk sign, divide would be slash. What do you guys use for remainder? Modular, which is percentage, right? Percent sign. Exponential is interesting. What do you guys use for exponential? What was that? You actually work it out? Oh, look it up. Yeah. So math dot how? Okay. And math dot how uses 2 arguments. The first and the second. So you pass in the first one. Going to put that as the column. So if I say 2 and 8, it's going to be 2 to the power, right? So you can use math.how. All right, any questions other than the bonus one? Everybody, yes.
For power, I just an asterisk.
But how many times? If it says 2 to the power 8, then you have 2 asterisk, 2 asterisk, 2 asterisk, 2 asterisk, 8 times. Right? If you're using that way, then you have to multiply the number by these many times. Okay, you can use like a for loop for 0 to this number and then keep multiplying it. Does that make sense? If you're not using the power. Okay. All right, any other questions? Everybody got it? Good. All right, the bonus one. Did anybody try the bonus one? That's an interesting one. Yeah. What was the logic? How did you guys solve it? Yeah.
I'm just about to finish it right now, but so since it's gonna be a string, for the algebra one, I use the split method. So I split it after the equal sign and then popped the dot pop to take the value that happens after the equal sign.
Okay.
And then I did the same for the plus sign. However, I'm noticing that there's going to be an issue with that.
Okay.
So you would want to limit it so that it only takes the index after that and not any other indexes after that.
Okay. Yeah.
And now I believe it's shift. No, car add 0. You can do that as well.
Okay.
And then just take each of those values.
Yeah.
Then so you can assume that it's going to take that same.
Right.
So,
Yep. So there are like more than one ways how you can solve it. The one way that he was telling about using the char add or car add and then using the spread operator. The other method that I have is you can use two methods of string index of and substring. Okay? So what you can do is, this is how the statement is always going to be, right? But the numbers can be double digit, 3 digits, right? These numbers can be different digits. That's what we want. Okay? What we are trying to find is this value. Basically, this comes down to is 10 minus 2 divided by 4. Okay? So if we designate this as num1, num2, num3, this equation kind of comes down to is num3 minus num2 divided by num1. Okay? Right? So basically, we need to find these numbers, and then this is the easy part. Then you can compute this part. Okay? Now, how do I find these numbers? The first thing I would suggest is you can use index of to find this letter. Right? You can do, let's suppose this whole string can be used as an array. Does everybody understand that the string is basically an array of characters? Right? So index 0, index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright? So any string in Node or JavaScript, it's basically an array of characters. So you can actually loop through this string and it will actually output single characters. Alright, that's the first thing. So if this is an array, index of, I can use the index of method on this array and then get the index of this one. Right? So let's suppose this is called equation. That's the name of my string, right? And since this is a string, it's an array of characters, I can say equation dot index of x. Okay? What is this going to return me? It's going to return me the index number, which is going to be 1. Alright, is everybody clear? Clear? Okay. Now I need to find my first number. The first number is always going to be on this side of this x, right? But let's do which is the easier one. The other easier one is to find the equal to sign, because this is never going to change. X is never going to change, right? The letter is always going to be x. The second thing is equal to. That's never going to change, right? So I can find equation dot index of this equal to, which is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in this case, right? I cannot find the index of this because this can change. If I say index of plus, the next time there could be a subtraction, there could be a minus, that changes. It could be a multiply, that changes. It could be a divide, that changes. So I cannot say equation dot index of plus because it won't work if there's a minus sign, right? So I need to find this by kind of going through this indexes and see what this number is. Okay, but from this, what I know is that this operand is always going to be on the right side of x, right? Is there any other place this can be? There's no other place, right? I mean, after x, there has to be operand. So this gives me that what I have to do is the index of, I know the index of x, which is 1, and my operand is always going to be plus 1 of whatever this number returns, right? So if this index is at 1, my operand is going to be at 2. Let's suppose I had 2 digits. Instead of 4, I had 34. The index of x changes to 0, 1, 2, right? And my operand would be at 3, because always 1 plus what this is. Okay? Any questions so far? Kind of getting it? So we are kind of like going through it and trying to find the indexes which we know. Okay? The next part you need to use is substring. What does substring do? You give it 2 indexes and it will return the string or characters between those 2 numbers. For example, if I say substring this between this and this is going to give me a number back. Okay, if I say give me a substring between plus and equal to, it's going to give me 2 back. That's what substring does. So you give substring 2 index numbers and it will return whatever is between those 2. That's what substring does. Basically, it's going to give you a string, a substring from a bigger string. Okay, so since we have the index number, you can use the substring method over here to kind of get from starting from 0 to x, whatever strings are over here, this will give you the first number. Okay, and then if you do a substring between this operand, which is this one, and the equal to sign, it will give you your second number. Okay, and anything after equal to is always going to be the third number. So the substring would be equation dot substring, right? The first index would be this one, whatever the equal to index is. So let's suppose it's 4 over here. Okay, so starting from 4 to the end of this string, which is going to be equation dot length. Okay, array dot length always gives you the length of the array, right? So basically, if this equation is an array, I'm saying that go to the end of the array, and then between these two, give me whatever is between equal to and the end of this one. Okay, this will give you your third number. Okay, then once you have those numbers, it's easy to plug into that equation. But the point over here is there are 2 methods in JavaScript and Node.js, index off and substring. So take a look at those methods and see if you can use those to solve this one. Okay, the solution will be posted. I want you guys to give it a try with this explanation and see how far you can get, and I'll post the TS will post the solution later. But the 2 methods over here are index off and substring that you can use. Okay, there was another solution that he was mentioning. You can use that also. There's little more methods that you can use. But the easiest one or a more simple one would be this one. Okay, again, this has nothing to do with Node.js actually. It's the same methods that you can use in JavaScript also. Okay, any questions? All right, keep that in mind and give it a try before you see the solution and see if you can solve that. In the meanwhile, we'll move on to the next one. We'll take a look at one more exercise and then we'll take lunch break, and this is number 7, multiples. Write a command line node application that takes in a number from the command line and finds the sum of all multiples of 6. Okay? So for example, you write a program and then you pass in 13. It's going to output 18. Why? from 1 to 13, there are two multiples of 6, 6 and 12. Okay, those are the only two possibilities. And then you're going to add those two. So for example, if I pass in 20, how many multiples of 6 are there between 1 and 20? 3, right? 6, 12, and 18. So then you're going to add all three of them up, and that's the output. Okay? Again, the input is a number with the maximum limit, basically. So from 1 to that number, you're trying to find what are the multiples of 6. It has less to do with Node.js, more about like a critical thinking part, but Node.js kind of makes it easier because you don't have to worry about showing it in your browser or HTML, so you can concentrate on what logic would be there.
I think it's specifically for 6.
Yes, just 6.
Just
Just
There's
6.
the bonus one.
The bonus one is for the first one is just for
So
6.
this one is.
Oh. Okay, okay. So then, check this out. So we could do this. We do that y equals to 3. And then here we'll say I plus equal y. Okay. So all this is.
So I didn't read the
Yeah.
You're just in a default values and also using
Yeah.
So we'll say this is going to be if Q3.
So that's my approach, but there's a better one. That's how I was gonna be.
Yeah,
But there's.
I'm looking at this and like, no, that's not.
That's not. You were going to do modular.
Yeah.
This is divided by 6, but then you have to go through every single one of them. Actually, the array. What if you get 10 billion numbers?
Yeah, like,
Remember, the index can be any number that you want.
I knew that. I just tested it. Tested it.
It doesn't have to be always 1, and it doesn't, you don't always have to increase it by 1. Double star, it actually works. So if you do
What is it?
the double asterisk,
Uh-huh.
it does not just 2 to the power of 2. If you do 2 asterisk asterisk 8, it will do 256.
Oh, okay.
So it does the
Okay.
thing that he was asking.
Oh, he said double asterisk?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just
No, yeah.
one.
No, he
Oh,
was
okay,
saying
okay.
double asterisk,
Double.
yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Then he said 2 asterisk 8. Oh, double asterisk.
Flexible divergent out here in a single statement of mathematics. Andrew. I don't know what's going on, dude. That's yeah. I want to see what I did wrong. I said constitute x is if three for y. I tried to make it bar because I know Rex was before loop. I don't know if we can access y. Because essentially what I'm trying to say is, okay, so with the bonus, you want to set x equal to whatever the maximum is. You want to say y equal to the increment. And then we'll follow this 6 and Q3. And what is z?
Oh, you're trying to set your own.
Exactly. I'm going to say that I equals 0, I is less than x. I can use
What is it?
so we can show
What were you? You don't know what does that mean? Alright, so what are you trying to do then? Like,
then we see then we run it 0. Okay, so it's
Into the
first
number.
one 0. 6, 9. Z is number 1.
what do you mean? Like,
Z plus equals I plus equals 1 plus equals 1. Z is that, but right here, so you know our number.
So the goal of this is, yeah, we just gotta have one. So how do we have, which problem is
Z, again, turn it. So let's try it again. Let's put in give me 2 numbers. 300. 300. Okay. Okay.
1049.
I just get 6.
Nice.
Well, you got a plus. You like plus equals. Plus equals. Not plus. Well, I don't know. Well, the same like Cool.
There are 2 different theories that essentially boil down to the same thing. Either divided by 6 over and over until it doesn't divide anymore. Store the results.
Yeah. So you can do it a couple of things. So consolidation number of and the actual outputs just the same.
Oh,
If I is evenly divisible by 6, it is a multiple of 6. So write down the number of
yeah.
the output sum is increased by it's going up, it's starting at 6 because you have a multiple of 6. And then I'm iterating I 6.
So that's what I was saying. What does that do?
See, I thought about that, about starting it at 6.
I know, but like,
Honestly, it's redundant because I said it's a 0.
why would it be redundant?
I mean, you know.
You don't need to go to. Yeah, I don't need to say it's a 0 because I know 0 is just.
That's true.
I mean, you're talking. Yours is actually redundant. The 0 is not divided by 6. Yeah, 0 is not. 0 is not.
So then I could have said, because I did it, I set it up. Because it's actually quite easy to set it up so that you can change it to. Yeah, like all I gotta do is change where it says 6 here, just change 6 to number 2. There's all the instances of 6.
Multiple numbers.
So it says 6 and number 2. That's very interesting. So we did it like literally 2 very different ways. So I'll show you the way that I did it. So I said
You have a number, range of numbers, right? From 0 to 20. You're supposed to add all the numbers.
Oh, I know.
Usually this is by 6. In 6, 12, 18.
Yeah, so
So you
we
need
space
to
it
check
out.
every number. So you're going to have to check every
I said
number.
if you were based by saying
Just to understand it, you have to check every number.
anything that isn't false,
That's if it's by 6. If it's divided by 6,
the
then
value was added.
the result.
6.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do it before. Let's see.
But that's how you.
All right, it's noon. We'll take the lunch break and we'll come back at 12:45, and then I'll solve this at 12:45. All right, gives you some time. Think about it. We'll reconvene at 12:45.
Yep.